Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP here. I love you so much. I've got a very special show here, but I just want to tell you, sorry guys, this is my 199 show. The next one is going to be 200. You just missed out on making the grade, but don't worry about it. I'm with two great
so close.
Are you upset? You'd be upset, wouldn't you, Terry?
I would be very upset.
You'd be upset, wouldn't you, Jude?
Almost made
I wanted to be on the number 9 show. I don't get that.
All right, now listen. How's things in Louisiana, Jude?
Everybody's still cleaning up after the hurricane. First time since 1856, Category 1 hit 5 hours inland.
I've never seen you clearer on video or audio in my life than today's show. Isn't that amazing what Zoom does?
It is. I love Zoom.
Now listen, I know, and Terry knows, that you're a lady that has many tricks, right? Like you're very talented. And this isn't a talent show, but you can gargle help or a hard day's night, can't you? Let's see this. Wait a minute. Before you do it, Jude, I've got to introduce it as a worldwide exclusive. Only on this show is Jude Kessler going to gargle to start off a show. Here we go.
And gargle, she loves you. Okay?
Great.
Here we go.
Go for it. Terry's excited. Loves you. That's fantastic. I don't know what to say. Your husband must be so happy you can do that talent. Terry.
My glasses are fogging up. That was
Terry's
so
got
good.
tears in his eyes because he's ready to send off the next spaceship for NASA. Right?
I have many talents.
His new book. He's extended it. He's extended his new book. It's going crazy worldwide.
Well, I'm sure I'll be invited to be on major programs internationally for that talent. But
I got to explain to you, Terry Crain. That's right. That's his name. That's Major Tom. You know that David Bowie song? That's Major Tom there. He looks all geared up, ready to go. You know, listen, we don't want to waste your time because we love you guys. And I've got to do my 200 show after this. Don't take offense. So let's get right into it. What are we talking about today, guys?
Go, Terry.
We have, we're going to talk about 3 years in the lives of the Fab Four. And Jude's going to kind of give you an overview of the year, 1964, 1965, and 1966. And then I'll talk a little bit about the merchandising and the items that went on in conjunction right around that year. So that's what we're going to do tonight, Plastic EP.
That's a fascinating subject. You know all about the merchandise, NEMS and Cell Tab, and spell it backwards. It's Scram. What is it? Scram whatever.
No, when you take Cell Tab and spell it backwards, those wily Brits, they took the word Beatles and spelled it backwards.
Yeah, that's right. But there's also Scramcat. What is it?
Stramzac. That was
that's right. I thought it was Scramcat.
No, Stramzac.
All right, let's get into it. Who's going to talk first? Because we've got all night. Come on.
Who's talking about 66?
I'm going to take you. You were going to start with 64?
64. I'm sorry.
Okay. Take you on a whirlwind tour through 1964. January 64, the Beatles are off to Paris. They arrive and spend just a little bit of time touring before they begin their performances for 3 weeks. Odd scenario because French young ladies are not allowed out at night without chaperones. And if they couldn't convince their dads to go, they couldn't go. And so the audience is mainly filled with males who are sitting there listening, enjoying the music, but there's no screaming and there doesn't seem to be much enthusiasm. And the Beatles are rather down until they get back to their hotel and find out that they have finally hit #1 in America.
Yeah, and that's the George V. The hotel's George V, isn't it?
George sank. Yes, it is. And they have a pillow fight. They're so excited. They talk to Louise Harrison on the phone about it. They're thrilled because they are slated in just a few weeks to go to America for the very first time to appear on the Ed Sullivan Show. There's a rumor, a nasty rumor, that the Beatles weren't going to go unless they got a #1. That's not true because Brian had booked them back in the fall of '63. They were going whether they got a #1 or not, but it's much better to go with a #1. They come to America, they're scared, they make up the story that if they fail in America, they're going to tell people that they went there just to get records and to experience the music scene and come home. They're scared to death. As the plane lands, though, they hear a strange noise that cancels out the sounds of the jet engines. It is the sound of screams canceling the engines from thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of fans.
Hey,
they appear on Ed Sullivan. Yes.
Jude, Terry was the pilot.
Terry was what?
The pilot.
He was the pilot?
Just flow with it.
That's why he's Major Tom. I got it. I'm with it. So they appear on Ed Sullivan to the largest television audience ever. There is not a crime committed in New York City during the time that they're on stage. It's phenomenal. Then they go down on train to Washington, D.C. to that theater in the round, that Coliseum in the round, where they have to turn their equipment to sing to all four sides of the audience. It is the wildest night ever, Ringo's favorite venue ever. Then they head to Carnegie Hall, play on the boards there where no rock and roll group has ever played, and to Miami, where they do 2 more Ed Sullivan shows, and then zoom back to England. Now, on the 2nd of March, they start the hardest 180 days of the Beatles' career. They're getting up at 6 o'clock because they have to be in hair and makeup. At 8 o'clock, they start filming A Hard Day's Night. They do that until lunchtime when they do interviews. They go back to filming until 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then they do television shows and more interviews at night. John is publishing his first book in his own right. So when he goes home at 10 p.m., his publisher, Tom Mashler from Jonathan Cape, is waiting for him to edit and to illustrate his book because it's got to go to press. He works with Mashler until midnight, goes to bed and gets up at 6. And this goes on and on and on and on. The book, when it comes out, is so great. He's nominated for the Foyles Literary Award for the best writer in England, has to give a postprandial speech, which he's terrified about. And that's a whole nother story we won't get into. But the minute that the filming for Hard Day's Night is over with, Brian books them for 5 live seaside sessions so that they can get back in the public eye. They almost collapse from exhaustion. In fact, Ringo does collapse from exhaustion and is put in the hospital. And so they leave to go on world tour without Ringo, with Jimmy Nicol in tow. They play Holland, they play Hong Kong, New Zealand, Australia. Ringo joins them en route, and they return to go to the London premiere of A Hard Day's Night, which is phenomenal, but not nearly as phenomenal as the Northern premiere in Liverpool. Again, sick at heart, they go to Liverpool thinking no one's going to show up because they feel like they've abandoned Liverpool and that Liverpool resents them. But for 12 miles from the airport, which is now John Lennon International, all the way into city center, 8 rows deep, thousands, I've got chill bumps, thousands and thousands of their friends and fans line those 12 miles. And they cheer and scream and surround the Beatles in Town Hall and City Center as they celebrate their great success and how much they are loved. Immediately, they start working on their next LP, which is Beatles for Sale. And then they're whisked away to their North American tour, an almost unbearable whirlwind tour where they go San Francisco, Los Angeles, up to Canada, back down. They go crisscross the country in the most haphazard fashion you've ever seen. They play the Hollywood Bowl. They end up playing Kansas City, which they didn't plan to do, but Charlie O. Finley twisted their arm into doing it. They go to Key West in the midst of Hurricane Dora, and then into Jacksonville where the winds are 60 miles an hour. It is the most eventful tour known to man. And somewhere along the road, they meet Bob Dylan and try marijuana for the very first time.
Okay, Jude, I've got to ask you something.
Yes.
That Charles, did he give him $500,000 to play on their day off?
He kept upping and upping and upping and upping his amount of money until the Beatles could no longer say no to them. And it's interesting, Brian doesn't consult Ringo, George, or Paul, he directly consults John. And John finally makes the decision. It's too much money to pass up, and they play Kansas City. And then Charlie O'Finley says, the writer is, I want you to do 2 extra songs. I want you to sing Kansas City for us. John says no, and he begs him, and he begs him, and he begs him. And John finally says, you shouldn't have paid so much for us, Charlie. But of course, when they step on the boards, John does the 2 extra songs, one of them being Kansas City and the other one, Hey, Hey, Hey.
Was it $500,000 that they got for that gig?
Yes, they are skyrocketing. Can you believe that a year before they were being paid in pennies by BK, Brian Kelly, who threw money at them because he said they weren't worth it. And now they're breaking all records for the amount that they're being paid. So the end of the North American tour, they come home, they have 5 days off, they make Beatles for Sale, back on the road again for the UK tour, long, desultory, interminable tour. But this time they're broke. So they don't stay in nice hotels and they don't eat great food. They stay in the cheapest of the cheapest of the cheapest hotels because they spent so much money hosting the press on the North American tour.
Sounds like my place.
The what? The what?
Sounds like my place. It's a joke.
Oh, got it. They make their Christmas record for the fans in early December, and then they do another Christmas show with the Hammersmith Odeon in London, and phew, 1964 is over. But it is the year of Beatlemania, and Terry will prove that by showing you what amazing stuff they were selling. Well, not they, but Nicky Byrne was selling to the public in 1964. Take it away, Terry.
Yeah, it was. That whole year was the biggest one in merchandising probably ever to get going like that. So you had 150 United States items that were licensed. Well, probably 100 of them at least came out in 1964. I mean, you had the T-shirts, you had the sweatshirts, the beach hat, the harmonicas, the postcards, the buttons, the posters, the book covers, the assignment books. You had those little Rimco dolls, and remember those because I'll come back to those in a little bit.
Terry, I just got to say, right, I've seen photos of New York when they're playing the Ed Sullivan show. People are working in service stations with the Beetle wigs. You see these young guys with Beetle wigs serving at the service stations. That's crazy.
Oh, there's so many great photos and advertisements from that year that maybe a car salesman will put all of his staff in wigs just to get the kids to come in to maybe look at a car, or they'll do all these things where they put the whole staff in wigs and all just to get a little PR for that. And they had, that's where the record players and the Halloween costumes came out in '64, the hairbrush and all that stuff, and all of this stuff. Also, since it was the U.S., a lot of this stuff started to be copyrighted. So the copyright office and everything was busy taking the copyrights for all these things. And one of my favorite copyrights, because you always find these goofy little things, Robert Thornton took out these copyrights for the Beetle portraits that he did. Well, he must have had a lapse of memory or whatever, because he took these copyrights in 4 separate things, and one of them said Beatles-John, and the other copyright said Beatles-Paul, and one said Beatles-George, but then he must not have remembered who the drummer was, because if you look at the copyright, it says Beetle-drummer. That's all it says. It doesn't even have Ringo's name on it, which is kind of neat. Now, one of the cool things about '64 was they had these postcards, and these 4 postcards, I'll show you right there. These are what I call the Greg Thornton postcards right here. Greg Thornton was an artist in Chicago, and he decided to make up some postcards and draw them out and send them to NIMS and to the Fab Four to see if he could get the license. And this whole time that he was doing this, his daughter, who was named Emily, who I interviewed not too long ago, Emily was telling me this story that her dad took the drawings and drew them all out, and he puts them in an envelope with a cover letter, sends them to NIMS, and a couple months go by. Well, they get this envelope in the mail, and Emily's in there watching her dad open the envelope, and the envelope comes back with 1 sheet of paper and the 4 postcards coming back. But the sheet of paper says, yes, we've granted you the license to do these, the official license, and here's what you do, and you can now sell these. So Greg Thornton gets all excited, he goes to a local postcard company in the Chicago area and gets them printed up, and they start their national distribution for the Greg Thornton postcards. Well, a couple of months go by, and Emily told me that her dad was one day at the desk looking back in the top drawer, and pulls this letter back out. And even though the postcards were going great and everything, and they really do look very good, they did great drawings, he was just a little not depressed or anything. He was just a little wondering why this is all he got back. He got a little half sheet letter from NIMS and all that said you can have the license and all that, and they send him the postcards back. Well, this time she said she's watching him, and this time he read the letter again and all that. Well, he's looking at the postcards again, looking at it, and this time what does he do? He turns it over. And on the back of all 4 postcards, the Beatles had signed their name to all of them. And you talk about getting excited at that point. And she said she was there and saw the excitement when that happened, when he got those postcards. Now, how cool is that story?
And that's really cool. But I just want to say something, Terry, if I may. Here in Australia, we got something called wacky plaques. The cards that you put behind the door, one after the other. I love them.
Yeah, those were those... They were kind of like baseball cards or whatever, and
long sheets.
They had these goofy little scallops all over the edges. So what you were supposed to do was take them off just right, and you could hook them together like a chain.
Yeah, on the back of a
door,
door,
around your neck, EP, if you wanted to, or over your door, or whatever it is, like that.
That was huge here in Australia.
Yeah,
and the bubble gum cards. Also, that card where they're bald. Their heads are bald.
Yeah.
I know. They did all kind of goofy things back then. So that just is a quick thing in 64. But like Jude said, that's when everything hit. And in my mind, that's when mass merchandising started in the United States. It was 1964. Especially, you could even circle the calendar and say on February 10th, the morning after Ed Sullivan, mass merchandising.
I just want to say something, because they gave 90% of their rights away, and they only made 10%, which was a crazy deal from the start. I want to know, and the figures are gone out, in the first year, right? I think it amounts to something in today's money, something like $20 million. Would that be right?
In today's money, it might even be a little bit more than that, and they finally figured out really quick. Brian Epstein figured out really quick. Hold it. 10% is what they've always did. 10% is what they did in 1963 when they started signing these things over in England and all that. So this 10% number wasn't really that foreign. But finally, about June or July or August of 64, the light bulb goes on, and he says, well, wait a minute, let's negotiate something else. And it's more of a 51-49 split. But that 6 months had already gone by, and there was a lot of stuff sold in that first 6 months of 64. So, and what we'll do now, if it's all right, we've got through 64. We got the shelves at Woolworths and Ben Franklin and everything all filled now with everything. So we're going to segue to 65 and see what we can find there.
I just want to say in 64 here at Woolworths in Australia, I remember the Beetle wig, 2 shillings, right? It was before we changed to decimal currency here.
Okay.
And they were plastic. You put them on your head, and they were molded one piece. You put them in your head, and you hope that you didn't go near fire. Otherwise, you'd have your head on fire.
Exactly. So let's go to 65 now.
1965 is the year that Ivor Davis spent $1 for, he says $1, who really remembers, for a Beatles wig. He wore it for John Lennon. John snatched it off his head and threw it out the window. So he says John Lennon owed him $1 for his Beatles wig. So 64, 61, 2, 3, 4, the Beatles are going up to the toppermost of the poppermost. You get to 65, and they are really at what appears to be the pinnacle. Because what do they do in 65? They repeat 1964. Look, if the formula worked in 64, they're just going to do it again. John is going to write a second book, A Spaniard in the Works. They're going to make a second film, this time Help instead of A Hard Day's Night. John's going to be writing the book during the making of the movie. Same exact pattern. Get up at 6, hair and makeup, film all day, do interviews, do radio and television shows at night. Same thing. Almost the same dates. Almost the same dates. Then when that's over with, they go on a world tour, different countries this time, Italy, France, they do different countries, but it's a world tour. They start working on their second LP for the year while you're having the premieres for A Hard Day's Night. Then they go on a North American tour, a little bit shorter than the last one. They learned that last one was a killer, but still Hollywood Bowl, same sort of things. And of course, Shea Stadium, which was the first mega concert ever in history. This unbelievable performance in Shea Stadium. They come back home. They have a few days where they're working on their second LP for that year, which is Rubber Soul. And it's changing. It's a transition album. It's nothing like what they've done before. You're hearing things that you've never heard before in this groundbreaking transition LP that's going to issue them into the difference that you're going to hear in 66. They are going to do their Christmas record for the fan again. And they're going to, Brian books them for another Christmas show. And John is just about, he says, if you're going to have a Christmas show, it's going to be you and maybe Ringo, because the rest of us are fed up with it and we're not going to do it. It's a big year personally for the Beatles because John and Cynthia have moved to Weybridge, Surrey. They're living out in Kenwood, which has been remodeled. They live 27 miles away from London. Ringo and Maureen get married. They move out to Sunny Heights, which is again out of the city, very close to where John and Cynthia live. Paul and Jane, who've been fighting this whole time because she wants to have a career and be a career woman and he wants her to be there for him, are still fighting. And you hear that in the lyrics to the songs in Rubber Soul. You won't see me. And you know, you can see they're still battling it out. And George is also moving out to the countryside. But George, it's a huge year for George Harrison because not only on his birthday does a little man ride up on a bicycle and hand him a book about meditation, which changes his life, but in the making of Help, he hears a strange instrument being played. He looks into it. He loves it. It's a sitar. He starts studying sitar. So this is a pivotal year for George. That's the year that I'm working on right now in the John Lennon series, and I call it Shades of Life because it is kind of a shade of what happened the year before. But Terry, was it a shade in marketing or were they coming up with totally new and different things?
Jude, I just got to say, I just interviewed Paul, who was there in India.
Paul Saltzman.
Exactly. He took the photos. That was an amazing interview. And then I did an interview with Jenny Boyd, who was there as well. I'm just saying that period there in Ricky Kesh, unbelievable. Paul Saltzman.
Yeah, and let me tell you,
people.
He is getting ready to be on a documentary special hosted by Sarah Schmidt of Meet the Beatles for Real. And you can get in touch with her on Meet the Beatles for Real and get tickets. They're very affordable and it's going to be a remarkable night on September 12th, but you can listen to it anytime you want to.
And Jenny Boyd will be answering questions at the end.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. And by the way, your prices for Charlie O'Finley, first offer $50,000, second offer $100,000, third offer $150,000, deal done. All right, so 65, Terry.
65 was another pivotal year for merchandising. You got to remember that Christmas of 64, they had all kinds of things coming out. So you still had that carryover from the Christmas of 64 going into 65. 65, they came out with the Aladdin lunchbox that was made down in Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, that's the cool stuff right there. And then even Heinz Food of all companies had a photo offer in 65 where you could get them along as since the offer in once you buy their stuff. But of course, 65 is one of my favorite because what happened in 65, you had this company called Colgate-Palmolive. Colgate-Palmolive wanted to make something. So what did they do? We talked about the Remco dolls in 64. So the Remco had been selling the dolls for a whole year. So Colgate-Palmolive calls up Remco and they said, you know what, you guys make these dolls like this. So tell us, Remco, how are these dolls doing in your place? So Rimco says, well, our two most popular dolls are Paul and Ringo. And in fact, Ringo outsells all of them 5-1. So Colgate listens to that. They go, okay, since they say that Paul and Ringo are our two most popular Beatles, then that's what we'll do. So they make the Ringo Soaky, and they make the Paul Soaky in 1965, and that's all they make. They decide, well, since the Beatles are hot, and who knows how long they're going to be hot, maybe only another few months, so we'll just make these two right here, so in case they don't do very well, we won't have to eat too much merchandising. And here we are 50 plus years later, and I'm holding these guys up right here, and we're still talking about that. So 65 brought us these and the TV commercials and everything, so you can't beat that stuff. And then once we got done with all that in 65, the segue went to 66.
Now listen, I'm just going to say something, guys. Zoom is only giving me 8 minutes and it's over. So what I want to say is I would prefer, if you want to wrap it up, Jude, you're welcome to say something. But it looks like we got a countdown happening now. 8 minutes and 30 seconds. So
right.
Go for it, Jude. Go.
Okay, well, I'm gonna set up 66 really fast and I hand it to Terry.
Okay.
66, the year everything changes. They quit touring at the end of Candlestick Park. George Harrison says, that's it, I'm not a Beatle anymore, but he was. They go into the studio, they become a completely different band. They produce Revolver, 1 LP this year. Revolver sounds nothing like anything you've ever heard from the Beatles before. She said, Tomorrow Never Knows. We're into the age of psychedelic acid rock. Terry, how about the products?
Well, you still had some cool stuff coming on. You had the inflatable dolls, the color forms were out then. You got the candy sticks so you could use them at Halloween and give them out to the kids, and the COS headphones and everything. And you had what I really like is the disco cases. And the record case where you can keep all your 45s in that and everything. So those came out in 66 too.
Charlie LaPrette has got 2 of those. I've seen them. He showed me.
Exactly. And one of the interesting things about those inflatable dolls that everybody likes and all that, they had the offer for those that you could get off the soap and everything. So that offer ran till 67. Well, when the offer was done, they still had these inflatable dolls left over. They couldn't get rid of all of them. So up into still the 70s, you could find those inflatable dolls at gas stations, at carnivals, and even on the boardwalk as you walked around Atlantic City, there was guys out there selling those inflatable dolls. If we would have only bought them then. And
Terry, did you buy any?
No, I've never bought any. I've seen him inflate them. I've held them in my hands, but I do not have a set yet. Oh. That was 66.
Beautiful. We've got 6 minutes left. Let's keep going.
Okay, well, that really sums up what I see of those 3 years. You move from teeny boppery and a performance band, which are the Beatles that I love, that band that could even do a cover song and make it their own and rock the boards, to a studio band. So, you really transition, and it's cool that Terry is seeing some of the things continue. I mean, the fans still love that early band, and you're seeing some of those early band items still really, really popular, right, Terry?
Right, and to go off of what you just said, probably to me, 66, that's why I like the 64 through 66, because 66, there's a line drawn.
Yes.
For the merchandise and all that. And after that, you get into the Yellow Submarine items and all that kind of stuff, and which is cool. I like all that stuff, but there's just something about those early 3 years, that all those goofy and wacky things that you can't recreate that. And who cares if the quality wasn't the best? Who cares if the paint
I'm a total fan of that.
Now
Listen, as a wrap up, we're going to talk quickly about where they can get your book. You've extended it, Terry. Where can they get it? Let's wrap it up, and then I'll ask Jude about her books. There you go. The extended NEMS book. Show them the front cover.
Second edition. It is available in over 60 countries right now. And I keep putting on the Facebook site the different places, like, here's where you go in Sweden. Here's where you go in Australia. I thought of you, Plastic EP. I found the Australia site. It's out there.
Okay, now, Jude, your book, what have you got left?
There are 4 books in the John Lennon series, take you from 1940 up to 1965. I'm working on 1965 right now, which will be volume 5, out in about a year and a half. You can go to johnlennonseries.com, and get all of the books. The first 3 books are available only in ebook format. They're sold out in physical copy. But the 4th book, which is Should Have Known Better, 1964, the year of Beatlemania, I still have physical copies of that, and love to see you at johnlennonseries.com, and join Terry and me at the John Lennon 80th birthday virtual fest hosted by Mark and Carol Lapidos and Jessica and Tilly. Michelle and Tilly, coming up John's birthday weekend, October, I believe it's the 7th through the 9th, Terry, is that correct?
That sounds right.
Yep, so that's coming up very soon.
Charles Rosenay's got an event happening, Remember Lennon, Imagine 80 on the 9th. And Jude, I want to show you something before we go. Have you seen this book?
No.
All right, now listen. This book is written by Michael Savas with his daughter, Olivia Savas Koopman. Guess what? Klaas Vorman did the design.
Wow.
And guess what? May Pang did the forward. This is a world-class book that I discovered, that I did it first on the internet. It's got photos here that you have not seen. And what I might do is I might get Michael to contact you about the book, because you'll be fascinated what's in the book. And look, the Beatles are in the pouch, and him and his daughter are on the medallion. How's that?
Wow, that's impressive.
Very cool.
Is that impressive? And when I say to you, Klaas Vorman, everybody go out and buy this. You know why? I know how many copies he's got left. I hope he reprints, right? But this now, is it going to be a collector's item? Make no doubt about it. I mean, I can see your face, how surprised you are when I come up with a world-class book. And look at that. It's signed to plastic.
Ooh, I love it. That's awesome. I wish I had had that when I was working on the last book, because there were really only 2 sources that covered Australia. One was Davies' The Beatles Down Under, and the other one is Jim Birkenstadt's incredible book, The Beatle Who Vanished. I didn't have that book, and it would have been so helpful. So yay.
Well, what I'll do is I'll talk to Michael, get him to contact you, right?
Okay.
And you're going to be fascinated with the stories he's got to tell. There's a chapter in here that I don't even want to tell you what it's about, right? Because it's going to shock you.
Yeah, I've heard some of the stories. That is unbelievable. I am really impressed, and I could just kick myself. I hate it when I don't know about a source, you know. Because
that's why I'm here, to give worldwide exclusives to famous people like you two, especially Terry. Terry's into the book too, but the photos in here, unbelievable. There's a picture of Paul McCartney sitting in a Volvo car out in the street.
Wow.
There's photos in here that have never been seen. So I advise everybody, while you can, go on the net and find Michael X. Savas and get a copy of this book, because I know how many copies he's got left, and I wouldn't be mucking around. I'd be getting a copy, because at least I've secured mine. Everybody's got a great book. Yours is world-class, both of you, right?
You said especially Terry.
World-class book that I'm bringing to the world. How's that?
That's good. And Jude, your books are right here on my shelf, right behind me. They are, and I like them. And you know what,
everybody, I love you all. Isn't it great what Zoom do? We've got 1 minute left. Thank you so much again. Bye bye.
We loved it.
See you, B.
Okay, stay there.
Bye. Bye, Major Tom.
Bye.